Welcome back to the Property Buyble. My name is Kim Ackerman. I'm a buyer's agent from Sydney. Welcome back to the Investor Edition series that we are doing at the moment. I am super excited today for this episode. We are going to be talking about starting your property portfolio with as little as $30,000, $30K. So when it comes time to start your portfolio, I think a lot of people think you have to save hundreds of thousands of dollars. Get that out of your head. Today, I have a very special guest with me. Mr. Nathan Birch, welcome.
Thank you, Kim. Appreciate it.
I feel like you don't need an introduction, but I will absolutely give you one anyway for those who don't know you. Nathan is a buyer's agent also.
Yeah.
People, we're not competitors, but we could be,
Different
maybe.
Markets and different things we do.
Different things. Mostly, investor strategists, I guess you'd say.
All investor, yeah.
All investment.
Yeah.
You're the founder of BInvested, which is a company that helps people learn about and also build investment portfolios. And you have a myriad of companies underneath that, from property managers, accountants, mortgage brokers, lawyers, you name it. Yeah. You take care of it.
That's it.
So I guess it's good to mention to people, you bought your first property at 18.
Yeah, 2003.
2003. So they can calculate your age.
Yeah.
And by 24, you were earning enough passive income to not have to work anymore.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, which
is pretty good.
Long time ago now, but it was actually, it's funny because it was in the middle of the GFC. Yeah. Everyone was scared of their job. And I actually just got annoyed with it. I was like, this is, a waste of my time being in my job. So I quit my job. Yeah. And here we are.
And here we are. Exactly. Yeah. And look, now you have over 250 properties on your portfolio, which is just unbelievable. And you have 30 pubs and motels, and you also have a Chinese restaurant we were talking about the other day.
Chinese restaurant, and I got my first 3 poker machines recently.
Okay.
So
that's
not
interesting.
That I'm collecting, they just happen and I work with that and then I expand.
Amazing, amazing. Well, look, you're doing something right, a lot of things right, and you have a great team of industry professionals helping you. So I can think of anyone better to help me talk about this topic today on starting your portfolio, because this is really your bread and butter. I mean, you were my buyer's agent 10, 12 years ago or whenever it was, buying my second property on my portfolio, and you help people get their foot in the door and kind of wedge that gap open, even when it seems like it's so far away. So look, just to sort of kickstart this topic, I guess everything that you've ever learned about starting portfolios and having to have tons and shit ton of money, it's just not the case. Yeah. We're going to explore that in a bit more detail today, and basically go through how you can be a little bit creative with building your portfolio and everything to expect in between. So we're going to start with the end in mind, as you always say. And as we go through this process, a lot of people think, well, how the hell do I use 30 grand and upscale that into my first property and then my second and my third and my fourth? Yeah. So have you had any clients recently that have had 30 grand perhaps?
Yeah, most of them.
Yeah, amazing.
Most of them come to me.
First home buyers?
First home buyers.
First investor buyers?
Yeah, even some people that might already own a property, they might have a bit of equity, but generally, between 30, 50, 100 grand. Obviously, if you've got more money, you can scale it to more hooks in the ocean to catch more properties and more equity and more growth. So a lot of people will sit there and think, I'll have to wait 2 years, but they don't understand inflation. By the time they wait 2 years to save up more money, the market moves up. They save 100, it goes up by 500.
Yeah, it's like you need time to save, but during that time, the property prices go up, often more than you've saved.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like, how can you ever
catch the tide,
go against the tide during this phase? But I mean, there are properties out there that are still good value or low enough value to get your foot in the door. But I guess it's fair to say that a great deal of that entry level is very dependent on your serviceability.
Correct.
For how much you can borrow.
I think a lot of people, and this is where I said just a moment ago, a lot of people will focus on getting the property per se, but they're not focusing on, what they need. I reckon probably 90% of the properties that I've bought in my portfolio have not been what I want.
Yeah.
They're about what the bank wants.
Yeah.
Because I want the bank to keep giving me money to keep buying and building the portfolio.
Yeah.
And it was about when I got to about 7 properties that the light switch turned on for me. I was like, hang on a second. I was trying to buy a property for $250K. This was back in 2005, 2004, something like that. And when I went to buy the property, the broker said, you can't get a loan for it. And I was like, okay, well, I can't get a loan. So I went and found a property for 130.
Why? Because you didn't service?
Yeah, I had seven odd properties beforehand. And I bought a property for 130 grand and I got the loan. I was like, great. I went back and I told my broker I want to get another one that's in the same complex. Because up until then, I'd use the word house because I wanted to buy a house.
Yeah.
But I couldn't buy a house. I bought a townhouse. And when I bought the second one, I said to the broker, can I get the loan? And she goes, yes, you can. I was like, one was 130, one was 140. That's 270K. You told me I couldn't get a loan for 250.
Yeah, it's fine.
You lied to me. Yeah. You lied to me.
Yeah.
And when she said that, she goes, I didn't lie to you, Nathan. She goes, you've got now 2 sets of income coming through. Yeah. Your servicing works. And I was like, hang on a second. Like, how can I get to more?
Yes.
And I just had a humble goal of getting to 10 properties. And I thought if I could get $100 a week.
We have well surpassed that by this point.
True.
Yes.
250 plus. It just changes all the time. But my strategy is just to buy and hold the properties and have a nice portfolio there. And ultimately, I got stuck and I realised that it was the properties to get me to the more lending that was important. And I bought my portfolio from there and I've moved it as I've needed to get more equity or more cash flow or more capital growth. And the portfolio today is houses, units, shopping centres, acreages, all different things.
Just random shopping centres and random Chinese restaurants as well.
I didn't even know I bought a Chinese restaurant until the resort settled. And I was like, shit, what do we do with Uber Eats accounts? And it's been about 6 months. Yeah. And it's only today I think the Uber Eats account set up for it.
I find that the most successful people are people that just work it out as they go.
Exactly.
You can't fully ever be totally prepared.
Yeah.
And if you wait until you're totally prepared, which may never come, you miss out on so many opportunities.
I don't think anything's ever been perfect.
Yeah.
Right?
No.
Whether it's having the money for the deposit, people say, "Oh, Nathan, you're so humble. You just, you're not a cockhead about,
He's got no shoes on. Just letting everyone know.
I don't even own shoes, just thongs, right?
Yeah,
and those
thongs.
that are international flip flops, genders, whatever you want to call them.
Fine. It's totally fine.
But there's no perfect time, and I think it's important to have a solid strategy. And then be fluid so you can move with markets. If I was still trying to buy the same properties that I bought 15, 20 years ago that were 200 grand, I was buying houses in Western Sydney for 200 grand everywhere. But they're like $1 million now.
Yeah.
I'll never get them for 200 grand. So I have to go, the strategy of the 200 grand purchase works. So I have to go to a different market and find that same sort of property today in 2022. There's less places.
Yeah.
But
there are.
Yeah.
For 200 grand, there are less places.
There is. It's become less all the time.
There's always places, right?
Yeah.
And I guess, it's about, I always use the analogy of there's that crack in the door of you getting your foot into the property market and you've got to just wedge something in there and just wedge it open. And that wedge will be that first property.
Yeah.
And then you stuff another property in there and it'll open to the point where it's easier and easier to keep building that wealth and using that creativity that you mentioned of knowing what the banks assess and use to your advantage.
Exactly.
To kind of do things legally and do things the right way using their rules.
Exactly. They set the rules.
They set the rules.
What can I play in there?
It's like the law, right? They have a book and there are always loopholes in that.
There is.
Where you're still sticking to the rules, but you're maybe going in between around the corners.
Yeah, I think being strategic, a lot of people just accept the world that they're given and they play in the parameters and it's hang on a second. Most people will sit there and go, I drove to my office every day and I'm about 25 minutes away from my office. I live on a farm. I'm about to move a few doors up. I've just bought another one and it's a nice...
You bought your neighbour's place?
Yeah, a few doors up and it's a 4-year-old house, big mansion sort of thing.
Yeah.
But my house at the moment, it's a development site. It's on 10 acres and it's only it's an old fibro house. It's about 100 years nice, but just old and crappy. And I drive past all these new houses being built. And I'm like, I want one of them, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I look at all their little yards.
I'm surprised you don't have one of them by this point, to be honest.
Exactly. I've got a big one now. Next 2 weeks' time.
Okay.
But what I what I realise is that when I drive to the office, I sit there and I think, who lives in these houses? They're 250 square block, no eaves on the house, all squished on top of each other. They're all $1.5 million properties. And I think to myself, you know, someone, like, you have to have the husband and the wife both working in the household if one income can't afford that house anymore. And I think to myself, if someone gets sick, doesn't want to work, they have kids, whatever, then they're in a lot of financial issue.
Yeah.
And I always think to myself, why wouldn't you just go and buy 10 properties for 150K instead of one house for 1.5? You'd have 10 sets of tenants all bringing in $300 per week rent. And that way you've got $3,000 a week or 150 grand income. If the husband and wife are on 150, you've got 150K coming in. Now the household is on 300 grand. At that point, you can afford to pay rent, or you could use those properties, the equity from, let's say they go from 150 to 200 grand, there's $1.5 million worth of equity of property going to $2 million. You've got $500,000 worth of equity. There's your...
And you've got the compounding equity of all of them combined as well.
And the cash flow.
And I think that's the thing. Don't be afraid to be creative when you're building portfolios. Obviously, it starts with knowledge.
Yeah.
Understanding what are the rules, that book that we're talking about, what are the rules, how can I use the rules to my advantage, and, you know, how can I be creative with, maybe you'll come up with, if you don't have a buyer's agent, maybe you'll come up with 4 different options of getting into the door. Buying one, or buying one outright, or buying 3, or buying, you know, and do the figures on all of them, all 3 or 4 scenarios, and say, where do I end up in 1 year, 5 year, and 10 years?
A lot of people have found over the last few years, you just touched on something there, will come to me and say, hey, Nathan, I can't get a loan.
Yeah.
Right? This is something a bit different. They can't get a loan. It's like, well, why can't you get a loan? The first question I ask them is, how much do you fail servicing by?
Yeah.
And they might say, I'll fail by $1,000 a month.
Yep.
Well, then I know, okay, we need to find $1,000 per month income. And if we can do that, then we can get you back to the loan. So they'll tell me, okay, I need $1,000 a month. How much cash do you have? Okay, I've got 100 grand. Well, we can go buy a little cheapy cash outright for 100 grand. Rents for $300 a week. There's $1,200 a month. You've now got the ability to take that to the bank, service for loans, get loans again. So it doesn't matter if someone's at a bigger position or just starting out. Like, I've got people that start out with 30 grand. You were talking to me beforehand about 30 grand. What can you do for 30 grand?
Yeah.
30 grand is a 20% deposit for 150,000 purchase price. You can buy in Perth for 150K. I've actually bought in the CBD in 2022, like within the 5K radius of the Perth CBD for 150K.
Yeah.
Wow. Brisbane, it's getting a bit harder, probably 200 grand. I did like 4 properties yesterday that were 140 to 145K each. They rent for like 250, 280, 300 per week. And a lot of people look in Sydney right now, in Gold Coast, Brisbane, and think, you know, it's too expensive. The prices have doubled recently. I can't get a foot in the door. Well, I look for areas that haven't had that growth yet, or they may be in a bit of a suppressed market. I don't want, it's like going to the Easter show and people going, okay, let's not buy a can of Coke and have a drink at home. Well, wait till we get to the Easter show and buy a can of Coke for $10. Why would you want to do that for? Why would you? Yeah. And why would you want to be caught up in a market which is a boom? And
very much so. And we were talking about this the other night. It's like focusing on certain areas that maybe haven't, like even exploring the idea of areas that haven't hit where the medium growth is, if you're to look at the median growth, if you're to look at like the median household income and see where, as those two things stack up to each other, some areas or regions or SA3s or whatever you want to call it, the household income is well below the median. And you think, how can people sustain these properties or even get in, you know, without having old money and things like that? But there are some areas around Australia where they haven't even like reached each other and the household is well below.
Exactly. And like, without going down too many different areas, like a lot of people, I can do that.
We did that the other day. It's like.
We can, I always think about, like, it's important to understand how money works, and just touching on that for a moment. Like, people say, I'll go buy a house for $1.5 million. The bigger the house price, the better the area, the much bigger chance for going up in value. But I think about it and think, if you've got a $1.5 million property, for that to double, that has to go up $1.5 million. If you've got a 200 grand property, that only has to go from 200 to 400, it still doubles. But the income in an area that would be at a $1.5 million, you might have 150, 200 grand income per year, household income. But on the 200 grand property, you might have 80 grand, 90 grand, 100 grand. So when you go to the bank and think how much does the mortgage cost, let's assume that they might assess it on a 5% or on a 6% because they do it at a different rate. If we're looking at a 5% of $1 million, that's 50 grand a year. If it's 5% of 1.5 million, then we're looking at 75 grand a year in interest. If we're looking at a 200 grand property at a 5%, that's like 10 grand a year. It's $200 a week. It's nothing. So those areas that have got the lower value with the higher rental and the higher income,
good
they
yield.
actually have the ability to go up. And every time interest rates go down, it makes it much more affordable because the costs come down.
And this is the thing, and this is like making my brain explode right now, but basically just because you can't service for a loan, like you mentioned your client and even yourself, how you were strategic about buying those two, and then it's the same thing at the end. It's kind of like if you want to, everyone always says to buy a car, if you have a property, like it's 10 times easier to get a car loan.
Yeah.
But if you have a car loan to get a property loan, it's like 10 times harder. I'm just like, what does that even, why? You're going to end up at the same destination, but it's the rules and we're just going to make them work to our advantage. But
if you can't service the house, sell off your car.
Yep.
Go
get
buy
rid of your
property,
liabilities.
Get rid of the liabilities.
Yep.
Get your house and see if you can go buy a car later.
Okay.
Probably go buy the same car back.
Exactly. And then end up at the same spot. It just makes me insane.
They set the rules. And
you just got to work around them, even if you have to go backwards, basically.
Exactly.
But
I've driven $500 cars so many times in my life.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for a new car to come at the moment.
Yeah.
I'm driving a Mitsubishi Mirage. So it doesn't matter how much.
Nothing wrong with Mitsubishi Mirages.
It's a $500 car.
I'm surprised you fit in it, to be honest. 6'4".
Yeah.
But look, that was a really good thing that you said just before. And just to unpack that a little bit, if someone feels as though, all right, shit, I got 30K, I barely service, like what the hell do I do?
Yeah.
Yes, you can be creative with your servicing and a good broker, firstly, but be creative with what you can achieve from a rental yield post-purchase, because that will affect your servicing.
Correct. And a lot of people will just think, okay, and this is the biggest thing. If we just think about every person you've ever spoken to about buying a property, they'll go to the broker will say you can borrow 500 grand, you can borrow 600 grand, you can borrow 800, you can borrow 200.
Yeah.
If a broker says you can borrow 500 grand, everyone goes, I want to go buy a place for 600 grand. I want to buy something, you can borrow $1 million.
Yeah. What
can I buy for $1 million? Oh, 1.2, let's go buy that. What people aren't looking at is going, okay, I can borrow $1 million. How can I borrow $2 million, right? And I think that's where the big key is, right? How do I borrow $2 million? Well, if you're only on 100 grand a year and you're only able to borrow $1 million, just hypothetical numbers here, of course.
Yeah.
How do you get to that level? So you need to make sure that when you spend that $1 million, that you're building yourself 100 grand worth of rental income. With that 100 grand worth of rental income plus your 100 grand already, now you're on 200 grand a year income. When you go back to the bank, they're going to be servicing you. Okay, we can borrow another 500 grand on top. People don't look at it. They
don't. And this is the thing. Rent is taken into consideration when you're getting the loan. The bank wants it. I know it's after the fact. People don't think about it though. So first-time investors, they don't know to ask that question, right?
And the emotion. Like I think the emotion. Of whether it's investing, like no successful business is built on emotion.
Yes.
Right? So if you're a property investor, you should be looking at it like a business plan and going, okay, what is my plan? How long do I want to be until I get retired?
Yeah.
Right? What sort of income do I need? So I always think, like, if I want 100 grand a year income, that's $2 grand a week.
Yeah.
$2 grand a week. Let's say you've got $300 a week rent. You need 7 properties to get there. How do I get 7 properties? Oh, it's impossible. No, we need to find out what properties will get there. Then we need to work out how can we get to 14 and get to 21.
Yeah. And it is possible. Like, I know it's so much harder to get into the market these days, and it's getting, let's be honest, getting like more and more hard each year with the property prices going up, inflation, like higher interest rates, lower serviceability. It's like, when does it end until something explodes and then like no one will be able to, it's just crazy. But these are the types of things that people can do. And when we're talking about quite literally starting a property portfolio with 30K, finding the areas that are of that lower value, maybe haven't hit that median household income value that we're talking about. But you actually have 5 touch points, don't you?
It started as 3. It started as 3.
And now it's at 5.
It went to 3 and then went 4 and now it's at 5.
Now it's at 5.
And it's only got number 4 and 5 in the last 2 years.
Okay.
And it's funny, like we're talking about 30 grand, how to start a portfolio with 30 grand. Because as we're talking, I'm thinking, shit, how much did I have to start off when I bought in the first place? And I had like 35 grand. I used mortgage insurance. I bought a property for 248 grand in Western Sydney. It was a house. It's probably worth about $1 million today. But I wouldn't do it that way. I'm not a fan of going mortgage insurance. Maybe out of 1% of the investors that I work with mortgage insurance. 99% would be the 80% lend. And that's understanding how the back end of the banks work. But if I had 30 grand today, I'd still be buying the same sort of thing. So if I had 30 grand, I'd go and buy a property for 150K. Look for the view of pulling out equity, using that equity to buy number 2, number 3, number 4. When I bought my first principal place residence, I was up to about 120 properties or something.
Wow.
It was like 8, 9 years on. And when I bought that property, I remember sitting there and interest rates were about 6.5%, 7%. It was $1.2 million. It was like...
Shit.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a lot.
Long time ago.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, like, this will cost me $1,200 a week. And I thought, shit, what happens if I can't afford that? I'll have to rent it out.
Yeah.
And I looked at my worst case and I was like, $500 a week. That's still $700 a week negative. And I thought about it for a few days. I'd actually bought the property, unconditional, all that. What I did is I sent out some emails to about 30 of my property managers and said, hey, put my rent up $20 here, $10 there, $30 there. I ended up with about $700 a week extra. And I thought, worst case scenario, I'll just rent it out. My portfolio will be the same as it is today. Happy days.
Exactly. And it's all variable.
Yeah.
Like it's so flexible. It's not even funny. And when you get to that level where you do have even like 10, there's so many things you can, it's so fluid.
10 properties.
Yeah.
Most of my investors have put their rents up, myself included, $100 a week, right?
Yeah.
I made a Facebook Live the other day. I was laughing. I was like, I don't care about interest rates, right? Because I put up like 100 properties by $100. That's 10 grand a week.
Yeah.
Right? But if you just had 10 properties and put them up by $100, that's still $1,000 a week.
Yeah.
$1,000 a week is 52 grand a year.
Yeah.
That's, a little bit lower than an average income now, but, it's going to give you decent. You're going to have bread on the table and food and lights on and that sort of stuff at home. But for me, the fundamentals are crucial. So once you have a strategy, once you have a plan in place, that's the first step. But then working backwards and going, okay, what are the properties, etc. I think when I first started buying property, there was no realestate.com, there was no internet, there was no podcast. There was
Really
no
showing your age.
Yeah, I know. I'm getting there.
I'm the same age, so it's fine.
I've got to embrace it. So looking at it, I had to go and do all the hard work. There was no videos, no podcasts, no nothing.
And I'm sorry, but that is why you are where you're at today, because no one just handed this to you. No. You literally, through trial and error, have discovered and use all of this rules and all this rule book to your advantage.
Trial and error. By no means did I come from any privileged family, 3-bedroom red brick house, Western Sydney. I'm not trying to say I grew up in a struggle street or anything poor or anything like that. Just a very hardworking family. And my family, I actually support most of my family nowadays. They live in my houses, don't pay me rent, all that sort of stuff, because I just want to look after them. Yeah. But yeah, I guess working out the parameters is very, very important. Once you've got a roadmap, I call it like a business plan for your property portfolio. Then working out what properties, but you want to make sure the 3 things that I always started off with, which was buying at below market value, does 2 things. Buying at below market value means that you've got equity from day one. So you can go back, let's say you buy a property worth 200 grand and you pick it up for 150. There's 50K there. You can go back, rip out 80% of that. That's 40 grand. Go and use that 40K.
You got instant equity.
Correct. If the market turns and everyone's fearful that the market's going to turn, right? And I always thought about it. You're buying it below market value. So if the market dropped by 20%, then you could sell it and not lose anything. It's protecting yourself and never concerned about the market. And making sure it's got upside for capital growth. That is why we want to buy the property.
It's important, exactly.
Want to make sure it has a strong cash flow. Everyone thinks it must be a positive cash flow from day one, but as long as it's got its own heart, lungs, and respiratory system looking after itself. That's the crucial part, because if you're buying a property and it's costing you $200 a week, you're having to go to work to pay for it. It should be improving your lifestyle. If the property's neutral cash flow and you push up the rent $50 next year, $10 a year after, $20 a year after,
positive.
It's going to go positive.
Yeah.
The newer parts to that, the 5 things, it's the 4th one. I wanted to buy it below rebuild costs. So the infrastructure costs, we've got rising cost of good, whether it be
for the asset portion of the value.
Asset, yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of people say houses decrease in value and all that, the land increases. I disagree with them, because the cost of goods is continuously going up. If you were to look at something off the plan, someone's paying all these margins and stuff, it's like buying a brand new car. I can get that. But if you're buying a property like today in 2022, it would cost more than $200,000 to build a granny flat. If you can buy a 2-bedroom unit, 3-bedroom house for $150K, $200K, then you're going to be buying that property below what it would cost to rebuild. If you had to have someone else come in and build a competitor property in the street, that would mean that would need to go for $500,000 instead of $200,000. So you've got intrinsic value there. The 5th one is making sure that you're buying in an area where the servicing is strong, which is what we're talking about beforehand, to make sure that upside for growth in the future.
And vacancy rates are low then as well. They want to live there.
Exactly.
It's an area.
And I was thinking about it recently, just earlier today, actually. It was actually today that I thought of this, that, if we're in a tighter market or something changed in the market, rents, people can't afford to buy. Right? If it becomes harder for people to buy, then their rents are going to go up. So it's going to push rents up. And we're in a market now where a lot of investors that have got a portfolio, have got large portfolios, their rents are going up $50 a week, $100 a week.
Yeah.
All of that is just on their bottom line. Like, if you don't have the asset and costs go up, well, then you've got to pay for that yourself.
Yeah.
If you have the assets and the costs go up, those expenses are going up for everyone else.
Yeah.
But that cash flow, your debt is fixed at the level of debt that you take out on the property. So that's what I look at.
Yeah, being strategic is so important when it comes to building a portfolio, because a lot of people freak out and think, oh my God, what happens if I have 10 properties and the interest rates go up? Or what happens if this? But like you said, be flexible with the rent, reassess where the rent's at. Even if you put up the rent by $25 a week, there's a good chance those people aren't going to move out from $25 a week for a start. You can assess your landlord insurance and get a better rate and get that for cheaper. You can look at everything and anything as far as costs towards sustaining those properties and make it better. I mean, I remember many years ago, I went through a period where I thought, shit, I'm going to be really tight on money like for the next 6 months. So I basically looked at every single one of my bills and reassigned them to different companies, got better rates, and then all of a sudden I had an extra $500 a month.
Yeah.
And then I was just like, fuck, I'm fine. Like shit, it's fine. I'm fine to move forward. But be creative with that, because there are always options as well. But look, if we're to like break it down, right? Yeah. Quite literally getting your foot in the door on 30K, you're looking at a low cost property.
Yeah, it could be a little house, like could be a townhouse, could be a unit. I'd steer clear of things like studios and under 50 square metre properties, because you can't get the finance. It's not
the
really
finance is a bit tricky, especially with resale as well, with lending and so forth. But
I'll take those things if someone gives it to me for $20,000 or $30,000 or $40,000. And
who gives you these studios? Can I have one?
Yeah, they're out there. They're out there. We'll talk afterwards, but no, they're out there.
Well, especially if you're buying in bulk, right? Yeah, exactly. You're going to get these for such a small amount, but there are still properties out there in specific areas, and don't be afraid to buy properties at this level thinking, but it's like a shitty property or it's a crappy. Yeah, it's not the same as like a $1.5 million but you've got to get your foot in the door.
Yeah. I remember it was 2004. It was like the Christmas of 2004 going to 2005. I was 19 back then. I was 19 once,
Yeah, we all were.
We all were.
Yeah.
And I remember going away to Queensland because I'm based in Sydney like you are. And I remember going to Queensland, and it was before the internet of like realestate.com and all that. And I'd heard of this area called Logan, and it's like the blue collar Western Sydney, really, rough area. People say don't go there, whatever. And I heard about it. And I was on holidays with my girlfriend. I had a girlfriend at the time that we were up there, and we were meant to go to like SeaWorld and Dreamworld and all those holiday things. And I kept driving around these houso areas, right, looking at these properties. And I found these properties, they were like $50,000 for a 2-bedroom townhouse, maybe $70,000 for a house. And I remember looking at them, and Sydney market had doubled and had gone up to like a peak in 2003 and whatever. Boom, and it had busted between 2003 to 2008. And I remember going up, I knew nothing about markets, knew nothing about anything. And I was like, oh, wow, I could buy one for 50K, 60K. And I contemplated on it. And I had these opinions. I said, it's a townhouse. They don't go up in value. It's Queensland. It's too much high risk. That was your thought
process back then?
My thought process.
Okay, not now.
No, not now.
Yeah.
It's Queensland, so things don't go up in value there because I'd heard rumours from friends and family and whatever. And if something breaks down, I can't be there to fix it, like tap washers and stuff like that.
It's all like mental barriers.
Opinions,
right?
And
opinions.
It's a monkey on my shoulder.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's too far away. Like, it sounds good, but it's a big problem.
Yeah.
Anyway, the Sydney market crashed between 2003 and 2008. And I think if we look at it on like graphs and stuff, it probably went back maybe 30% over that period of time, pre-GFC. And in Queensland, the market actually went off between 2004 and 2009. And after GFC, the market crashed. So I realised, as an afterthought, many years later, that markets are not all linear. Right? They go up and down, sideways.
For sure.
They're not all stuck together. So there's counter-cyclical markets. So you've got some that are up, some are down.
All over the place.
And then the thing I realised at about 2007 or so, that's when I got stuck with the loans and I needed to buy townhouses and stuff. Bought my first townhouse and I was like, these things go up.
Yeah.
Right? And when I saw the townhouse go up from 50 grand in Logan to like 200 grand, I realised that my opinion cost me 4 times the money. I could put down 10 grand as a deposit and I've turned that 10 grand into 200 grand from 50. So if I put 10 in, went to 200, sell it off, pay out the 40K loan, I would have ended up with 160K from the 10K, right? It's probably better than Bitcoin, right?
Yeah, better than Bitcoin.
Right?
Yeah.
And
secured against the house as well.
It's the house, right?
Yeah.
It's got a cash flow coming through, unlike other asset classes.
Yes.
And then I realised that I never go to my properties anymore, so why would I want to be a tradie? I'm not a tradie. In the early days,
you have to learn to let go.
Correct, right? And I look back and those properties did go up in value tremendously. And I look at them now, they're probably worth like 300 grand, right? And the market went up to 200, maybe back down to 150, and then now it's 300. And people would have got scared at certain points. There's no chance I would have paid 200 grand when they were 200 grand beforehand. But given all the parameters around them, like everybody would love to buy one at 200 grand. But they've all gone up. And I think for a lot of people, it's scary to go to a different area, right? Even for myself, right? That was my first mistake. And the biggest regrets that I have with my portfolio are the decisions that I didn't take, looking back in hindsight.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And that is a big thing. I remember the one I bought with you.
Yeah.
I didn't even see it. Sight unseen, the figures matched up. It worked from an investment perspective. I didn't want to get attached to it emotionally. So I never saw it, never went to it. But eventually, like when I did buy it, I gutted it and renovated it and upped the rent and upped the value, pulled that money out that I spent on renovations, and then it just kind of did its own thing, right? And research is a big component of this.
Exactly.
Don't just go and buy a $150,000 property.
Because it's cheap.
Because it's cheap and you can afford it. That is not what we're saying at all. It's all very general information as well. But I guess to really give people some tips and put this in like a step-by-step approach, would it be fair to say, first things first, if you got your 30K, go and find out how much you can borrow.
First step, find out how much you can borrow. They might say you can't borrow anything. They might say you can borrow 500 grand. And don't go to your broker and say, I've only got 30K. Just say like, look, what's the maximum I could borrow? If I had more money, what could I borrow up to? And then you've got a bit of a roadmap of what you can borrow financially.
Yes.
And then go, okay, I can borrow $1 million. Let's just spend 150 today. let's use our deposit, buy the first one.
Yes.
Once you buy the first one, I guess reverse engineer that plan of what the end goal is, because a lot of people just willy-nilly just go, okay, I'm going to buy a property, and then
I just want to buy lots.
Just want to buy lots. Yeah, exactly. I want to buy lots.
Keep buying.
I want to be like you. So
I said that at the beginning. I was just like, I just want to buy everything. And okay.
But it's like everybody's skill set's different. Everybody's background is different.
Yeah.
And
everyone has different risk profile, different comfort levels as well. Right. They may not want to get 10 in the first year. Yeah. They might want to get 1 a year for 10 years, or maybe 2 is enough for a lifetime.
I see people that could buy 10 tomorrow.
Yeah.
And they go, cool, I'm going to do everything. And then they do nothing.
Yeah.
I see people that are like got 30K.
Yeah.
And then they hustle and they just want to keep, like, they're so committed, and they'll get to 10 in a year or 18 months, and it's like,
but it is possible. And it's just about persevering.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So find out how much you can borrow.
Correct.
First of all,
get your deposit, get your 30K, 50K, whatever. So if you can, once you know what you're working with, and you got to go, okay, I can spend up to 150. I've got the deposit to buy 150. What areas would be the best that would match that? I don't want to go to a bush area. I don't want to go to a one-horse town.
Broken Hill.
Yeah, Broken Hill. Like, exactly, right?
No.
And those properties are cheap because they're cheap, right?
Yeah.
The banks don't lend on them properly. I've never been. They've never even been interested in looking out there.
Yeah.
But like there's areas like you go, okay, well, where's the capital cities? Let's look around all the capital cities. You go Perth, that's probably got the lowest sort of purchase price now. And you got Brisbane, that's got very low purchase price. Even in Sydney, like, in 2022, you can still buy in Sydney for like 310 grand, 315 grand. I actually bought a unit in Parramatta today for someone, one of my staff actually, for 315 grand.
Yeah.
In Parramatta, 2-bedder. It's like, it's still
and not a studio, like a 1-bedder.
Two better, yeah. It's an ugly red brick thing. It's like absolute, looks like dog shit. And I said, like, just buy it, right?
But you're wedging your foot in the door, right? Or you're adding to your portfolio.
Well, she's going to buy the property. It's going to revalue for 400, 420. Hopefully, touch wood. You can never guarantee the banks. But given all the data that's out there, you go revalue it, pull out 100 grand, 80% of that's 80 grand. There's 2 more deposits there.
Yeah.
And that's, it's just
you have to be like an artiste to go through this process, I feel like.
It is. And there's no like one size fits all.
No.
You know, like it's like everybody's position is different. And I think over the last sort of 13 years of helping people in that, I see, someone might have massive income and can service well, but they have no money.
Yeah.
Someone might have heaps of money, but they can't service. Sometimes I think, I should just put those 2 people at the table and say, okay, you guys buy together. Like, this is a joke, right?
Yeah.
But it's everybody needs something different, and it's working out what you need, what vehicle it is that you need to get you to the next level. But if you know where it is that you're going, then you can make, the appropriate steps. If some people have good habits, some people have bad. If someone's unhealthy, they're out partying and, they're eating bad food or whatever, you can't just go and be fit all overnight. You have to, go to the gym, you have to cut back on what you're eating, do the right steps. Same thing with your finances, same thing with the property portfolio.
Yes.
But I think if you have the deposit, go, okay, I'm going to spend in this parameter, find the location of where you're going to invest in, purchase the first one. You want to be buying it where you've got the access to equity again. If you can, some people get scared of taking equity as well, because they'll be like, I don't want to take the 50K out, I've got to pay 5% interest, I've got to pay 3%.
Just dump it in your offset account, everyone.
Yeah.
Dump it in your offset account.
Just have access to it.
The repayments won't change. You can just dump it there, just have access to it.
Correct.
Yeah.
And looking at it like, if you had 50K, how long would it take the average person to save up 50K? Right?
Yeah.
They save up 50K, then they have to pay tax on it and all those sort of things.
Yeah.
It might take them a year, 2 years. By that time, the market will go. You could literally pull out the 50K equity, use it as a deposit for property number 2. 3% interest on 50K is $1,500 a year. 4% interest, because the interest rates may go up and people are scared of it, will cost you an extra $500 a year.
Yeah.
If you can just push your rent up by $30 or $40, that's going to cover the equity. And then you get the next property. Yeah. And just leapfrog.
Look, I'm obsessed with spreadsheets.
It's very important.
I'll say that off the bat. If you are getting into property investment for the first time, get obsessed with spreadsheets and learn how to do formulas, because you will be able to uncover the unknown and look at these complex situations and know the answers to the end goal of if you went down avenue 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, and be able to make a very well-informed decision on what is the best approach moving forward. get your finance in order. With the research side of things, that can be a bit difficult sometimes if you don't have a buyer's agent or an investment strategist involved. But if you want to DIY, you can most certainly look at these different areas where property is going within the amount that your budget is.
And I think it's very important on that. Like nowadays, it's like driving a car, right? When you first start learning to drive a car, you're like, you're not going to crash into anything. Now you're like, oh yeah, we'll put the arm out the window and turn the music up.
I don't know how you learned to drive a car, but that's
no, I'm just saying.
I know what you mean though.
But when you are starting out investing, I remember I used to spend like 8 hours a day just researching areas, wanting to go out there, seeing what they're like. You want to become an expert in that area. So don't just go, I'm going to buy over here because I heard a hot tip on a
oh my God, that frustrates me so much.
There's been great growth in Tasmania. Let's go there. And it's like, Tasmania
according
did nothing.
To what? According to who?
All these spookers have got in there. The prices have gone up. It's like, because it's gone up triple doesn't mean it's a great investment. It means that there's so much downside risk. You want to go to a market which hasn't had that.
Do you know what it is? People regurgitate information that they're not even sure of.
Yeah.
Well, I heard that, Brisbane was doing great at the moment. I heard you shouldn't buy an apartment in Brisbane CBD because there's there's an oversupply and an under. I heard that, and I'm just like, stop it. Like, do your own research.
The important thing about that is very important, right? Because I've seen in all different areas of life, right? I remember when I first started investing, I had so many people saying, don't buy in household areas in Western Sydney. Don't buy this. If I was you, I wouldn't do that. And it occurred to me, I think it was about like 19, and I had like someone say to me, don't do this. And I was thinking, if I don't do that, I'll be you, right?
Yeah.
And if I'm you, I'm not going to be happy with my life, right? Because your decisions led to you to where you are.
Savage, but
right? It's true, right?
Yeah.
And then I see it I remember like years ago, I was like talking to this tradie, and he was like a divorced, alcoholic, angry guy. There's nothing wrong with any of that.
Sorry if you was
no, he's all right.
Okay.
He was too drunk and stuff. He was a bad tradie, right? But he used to go, women, blah, blah, right? Because he was angry and upset because his marriage didn't work, right?
Okay, yeah.
So if you were to go to him and say, I've had a bad day, the wife or the girlfriend or whatever, and you listen to his advice and take his advice, you're going to be the drunk, angry old man at the pub.
Yeah.
You go to the person with a successful marriage and they go, marriages take a lot of work and all that sort of stuff. They'll be like, okay, that's a good idea. I'll take your advice.
Yeah.
So go to the expert that has what you want to achieve and actually
100%.
Yeah.
Like, how can someone give you advice on like where to buy and where not to buy if they don't even own property to begin with,
or even know you?
Yeah. Look, I'm really bad with this sort of stuff. I don't take advice from anyone about anything. Like ever. I just don't. I take in information. But I don't ever take anyone's advice because I like to make up my own mind and not be influenced by external factors in any facet of life. And it's the same with property investing. Forget about the rumors. Do your own research when it comes to that portion of it. So we could talk about this, right? And we keep going off tangents. But look, the snapshot of this is get your finance in order, find out how much you can borrow. Make sure you've got it like a good creative banker or broker that's going to look outside the square, use your rental income to your advantage. Because he might say, and this is what I don't see often, which probably frustrates you as well. Like a broker might say, you can borrow X amount of dollars, like 100,000, just say. But then if that person says, what if I get X amount of income or X amount of income, all of a sudden that changes.
Exactly.
Because your base income is different.
Because they've made an assumption already.
They've made an assumption based on their salary from their one job that they have.
Correct.
If they say it's an investment property, roughly how much? And so you start to get flexible and you can use the yield to your advantage to say, okay, so I want to borrow 500,000, for example, with this little tiny deposit I have. That means I have to hit 4.5% net yield in order to achieve that loan. Reverse engineer it, like you said.
Exactly.
Like Such a simple thing, but this is something that people just don't talk about, right?
Also, the broker being proactive enough, because a broker, I see so many times that a broker will cross-collateralize someone's loan or make it so they're stuck, right? It might be easier for the broker, but it's not the best interest for the investor.
Yes.
They fix them, they do all these ugly things. Every time I ask them how long they fixed it for, and they go, 2 years. I know they fixed it for 2 years, so they protect their commissions.
Yeah, I know.
And it's really, really ugly. But if your broker may not be able to package a loan up one, mate, they may be able to take it to a different bank. So what I mean by that is there's so many times where, like, this is just an example about CommBank 2 years ago in the Gold Coast.
Yeah.
They were only taking 50% of rental income in, right? So if you went to CommBank and went to the Gold Coast, 50% rental income, you can't service.
Yeah.
But if you went to ANZ or Westpac or another bank, it would be fine.
Yeah.
So you've got to shop those properties around and shop that loan around to make sure you get the best servicing. And everyone looks at interest rates and go, what's the best interest rate?
I don't look at interest rates.
Who cares?
I always tell people, like, not a mortgage broker, but like, don't look at interest rates. Look at what you're getting at the end of the day. You can massage the interest rates later. You can literally call the bank up 6 months later and say, can you drop it? Like, there's so many options
and
there.
One today, it could be 25 basis points different. One puts up the rates and you're behind the other one. The most important thing, I think, is understanding what that loan product will do.
Yeah.
You need to ask these questions, like, how soon can I pull equity out?
Yeah.
The broker might say, well, you have to wait 12 months. If you put a 10% deposit, like, there's all different parameters around it. So, yeah, we don't want to get everyone confused with all the information.
Gosh,
there's
so much. You just go off into so much. But the finance is a huge chunk of this, because that you got your 30K. The finance is going to tell you whether you can borrow 80, 90%, have LMI, not have LMI, like depending on what bank you're going with. Sometimes they don't charge you LMI to go up higher, more than 80%. Then you have the option of like having a creative broker. Then you have the option of making sure that like they're throwing in like the proper rental yields. And then you have the option of like changing that rental yields and finding the property suited with a property manager. And then you have the option of like, what was the other thing I was thinking of? There's so many different, just don't take no for an answer. We were talking about this the other day. Like if someone tells me you can only borrow 400K, okay, thank you so much.
Yeah.
If you're not going to like look further into that, I will simply go with somebody else, because there are 5 other avenues we can explore. Second, third tier lenders. We can explore, the grants, the government grants that are out at the moment. There's like a million things you can look at. You can look at dual income properties that are going to provide you like so much yield that you'll explode the amount of serviceability that you thought you never had. Like, it's just so much. Anyway. We could talk forever.
We could.
I need to give people some real tips, because we always wrap these episodes up with tips at the end. So, look.
Have a plan.
Have a plan. Yeah.
Understand your market you're investing in.
Yes.
Have the right team around you.
Yes.
Make sure when you're buying a property is below market value, so you've got the upside for growth with it as well. Yeah. But making sure that equity, if it's below market value, you can take the equity out for property number 2 or property number 3. If it's below market value and the market does change, well, then you can sleep at night. And if you have to sell it, you can sell it and get your money back on it. So,
I think, hold your breath and just do it.
Make sure that whatever you do, the numbers add up, because numbers don't lie. Yeah?
It's true.
Your emotions can lie. Your friends and family can lie.
Yeah.
The salesperson selling you something can. But the numbers are what's fundamental. If you're an investor, you treat it like a business, you revert back to your strategy, revert back to your business plan. As for the properties out there, you can buy stuff. Probably the cheapest property bought this year was $16,500, as we've been talking of. Like, that's that's the actual purchase price, right?
Yeah.
That's for a block of land. Most expensive, like $6.6 million for property. They come in all different shapes and sizes.
They do.
They're all for different people. They're all for different strategies. They're all for different reasons.
And they're all for different entry levels as well.
Correct. And what point of your portfolio, what part of your journey are you at? Can you add different levels of risk? And that's where you need to...
Look, I think starting at 30K is going to resonate with so many people that are listening to this. I know there's so many people I can rattle off in my head that are like, 30K is like attainable, right?
Sell your car. $500 car.
Sell your car, go buy a property, buy below market value, and then pull that equity and go buy your car back. Like there's so many different ways, and just try. I know it's hard for some people because not everyone like thinks on this like hectic wavelength of like all these different like options and things and like that. But just try and be creative. Don't take no for an answer, and realize that there is more than one option when you're going through this. So as you said, stack up all your options, look at the areas, but in my opinion, don't wait to save more. Like, get out there when you can, get in there when you can.
And if you look at money and inflation, right? Like if you had $1,000 in your bank account today, you're going to buy a lot less stuff than what $1,000 last year would have been.
Yeah.
And if you go back the year before, $1,000 less, it would buy you less. And, you know, if you cash is trash, right? And that might be a bit controversial for a lot of people, but like cash is buying you less. I want assets. I want cash flow coming through. I want to see that $1,000 keep hitting my bank account, not sitting in there, doing nothing. So
literally doing nothing at the moment. Like if people have hundreds of thousands of dollars in their bank account,
it's losing money.
It's losing money. You'll be better off going and buying an investment of some kind, whether it's a parking space or a house. Yeah. Getting your foot in the door and at least earning an income, and then being able to claim back on those expenses and so forth.
And getting that cash flow.
Getting the cash flow. And look,
cash flow.
There's so much more to, like, there's years and years of learning to do with properties, but start, if you are looking at buying your first investment property, start now. You know, there's millions of free podcasts and articles and stuff online that you can just learn about this if you're genuinely interested in it, and it's going to help you strategize, build your portfolios. But don't be afraid to buy that shitty little property at the entry level, because if that's the only level that you can get in at, so be it. Yeah. But you will get bigger and better, and it will get better down the track.
When I first started investing, $248,000 wasn't my goal. But I realized that I had an option of buying a $500,000 property. Yeah. And if I bought that property, that's where the story would have ended. I would have been stuck on that mortgage, high interest rates, all that sort of stuff. But I realized that I could have bought 4 of those properties at $250K. So I could have had $1 million worth of property. Yeah. Difference is, if we fast forward to today, is that I had 4 rental incomes that have all doubled and tripled in size. Those properties have all doubled and tripled and done their things. The property that was 500 is probably worth about 1.3. The one that's at 200, 250 are now worth $1 million, $1.2 million. Yeah. Reality is that if we see a boom today, tomorrow, next year, 5 years, doesn't matter when, right? I'm playing the long game by collecting assets. I have no respect for cash. I just want the asset that's going to bring the cash flow. Yeah. The cash, people want cash too much. They sell a property and whatever. I want it gone as soon as I can. But if the market was to double, would I want to see $1 million double to 2 million, or 5 million double to 10, or 10 million double to 20? You need to work out what sort of asset position that you need, and then work the right steps to get there. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my God. There's just so much there. I could talk about this all day. There can be a whole nother episode just on like the actual building of the portfolio and how that's structured, and all the millions of different ways you can have different types of things within that portfolio, no matter what the size is. But this has been great.
Cool.
So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Love everything you do. You have obviously just like smashed it in life. So
thank you.
Kudos to you.
Thank you.
Keep doing everything that you're doing.
The hustle's real.
Hustle, the hustle's definitely real. Keep being authentic as well.
Think one part of it is to achieve something, but the other part is to keep that, right? And I see so many people that, you know, whether it be in business or like just generally, you see people, you see like a sports star or something, someone will get to a level and then they stop doing what it takes to get to that level.
Because they get comfortable.
Comfortable, yeah.
There's a
or
quote.
An ego.
Yeah, exactly. The ego is a big thing. There's a quote that I love. It's called "The lust for comfort kills the passions of the soul." Okay. And it's just kind of like the more comfortable you are, you lack that like drive, that hustle to like go and do what you really want to do. Yeah. And I think people get very complacent, very comfortable. They get to these platforms where they're like, I kind of got what I need. Yeah. And then they lose all that.
It's never enough.
It's never enough. But yeah, it's never enough for me as well. I'm like, it's never enough. Everyone's like, you know, this is great or this is great.
It's a game now.
It's never enough.
It's a game.
Yeah.
It's a game. And when you get to a point, like the dangerous part for me is like, I just don't care that much anymore. It's like, I want to keep pushing myself. And then
but you have goals. You have yearly goals, quarterly, everything.
Yeah. And like another sort of saying that is pretty cool is every level there's a new devil, right? At each, you need to keep reinventing yourself. You need a different mindset. Like the person that you are when you buy your first one is a different to the person you are when you get your 5th, your 10th, your 50th, your 100th, whatever. And just keep growing.
So much. Well, thank you.
Thank you
for coming in today. Thank you for your time and your knowledge, and everything else has been really fun. I hope that people that are listening have taken something away from this. You know, buying a property or starting a property portfolio with as little as 30K is not easy.
No.
But you just have to go through the steps, one foot in front of the other. Get your finance, choose an area, go and find something, and just fucking do it.
Take action.
Take action. Action is the big thing here. And before you know it, that property will do its thing and you can get the next one. And be strategic, be flexible, and just squeeze out everything you can from it, basically.
From chatting, I just think of it as every day is it's just normal, right? It's just normal. But thinking about it, people that might be watching will be thinking this is, it sounds scary, right? Going to that different area, different market, whatever.
Yeah.
And you may have a lot of people saying, don't do this or do that, do the next thing.
Yeah.
Just really make sure that if you have a strategy, the logic is in the strategy. The emotion is what other people's opinions are. So be careful where you're taking that advice from.
Yes.
Make sure that it fits in line with your strategy. If you have a strategy, stick to the strategy.
Yes.
Make sure everything else around you fits in.
Yeah.
If your broker's telling you a different thing, find a new broker. If someone's telling you different, find a new
Of course.
broker.
Anyway, good luck.
Thanks for watching, everyone. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening, for watching on whatever platform you're on. And I'm so lucky to have you here today. So thank you.
I'm humbled.
And hopefully you can tune into the next episode. We're going to have a lot of good stuff on this Investor Edition series. So we'll see you soon.